Hello, can you hear me? I can barely hear you. Let me bring you up. Let me see. Uh, I can hear you. I can just barely hear you, but you can hear me. Okay, we're getting a little feedback. Yeah, I can barely hear you. Um, Let me tell you where the stream is at. It's on YouTube, so just look for Terry Collins Test, and that's live, and that's where that will be. So like I said, I can barely hear you. I don't know why I'm not. Let me try something here. Can you hear me now? Okay, I still can't hear you. Let's see. Can you hear me now? You still can hear me? Okay. Um, Let me reset this phone adapter. I'll call you right back. What's that? I'll call you right back.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again.
Hey, yo,
Okay, I can hear you good now.
can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you. I can hear you
Okay,
loud and clear.
Okay, I can hear you. Hold on. Hold on.
Okay.
Let me put you in queue. Hold on. Kind of fuzzy in the background. It's like a fuzzy.
Fuzzy. Let me turn the level down. How? Still fuzzy?
It's a little less.
Okay. How about now?
It's better. Are you traveling right now?
Yeah, I'm in Sacramento.
I mean, but are you moving right now?
No.
Okay.
Let
That's a little better. Go
let
ahead.
me try something. How about now?
That's better.
Okay, that's better.
At least that's a little better. Yeah, that's a lot better.
Oh,
But it's
okay.
still fuzzy.
Still
Yeah,
fuzzy.
it's still fuzzy.
Let me turn down these other levels. Let's see. So how about now? Larry? 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 Larry, can you hear me? Larry? 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 Larry, are you there? Larry, if you hear me, say something.
Hello?
Larry,
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, let's go with this. Let's go with that and see what we come up with.
Okay.
Okay, all right, hold on. Stand by. Okay, Harrison, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good, good. You're coming in clear. Okay, how's it going up there? You up in where you're in Sac right now?
Yeah, I'm in beautiful downtown Sacramento and decided to take a little quick road trip to check out remote equipment we have here at KPOO. And like everybody else in the broadcasting industry, we've been shut down for the last 15 months, and a lot of stations have done different configurations to allow their personnel to either broadcast from home, or they haven't been doing any live remotes, and we've been in the same boat. So we decided to hit the road today, check out the equipment, and to make sure everything is ready to go for a live broadcast of Terry Collins Memorial Service, which will be happening next Saturday from 2 until 6 p.m. and we'll be broadcasting live right after your show next Saturday starting at noon, and we'll be at the African American Art and Culture Center, 762 Fulton Street in San Francisco. So again, we're just testing the equipment, making sure everything is ready to go.
Well, maybe we do it more than a test this morning here, Harrison. I don't know. Did you hear me this morning early when I first came on?
Yes, I did. I heard you talking about John Lewis and everything. And the thing about John Lewis, today is the 1-year anniversary of his death. And that's one reason why they're doing this christening today. But something more important happening around the country is there going to be a twilight service honoring the life and times of John Lewis, and also demanding that the Senate give up their filibuster and pass the John Lewis Act, which is stalled in the Senate right now, not only because of opposition by Senate Republicans, but also the two Democratic senators from West Virginia and Arizona who don't want to vote with Democrats to repeal the filibuster, and they are standing in the way of Democrats getting their agenda done. So there's pressure on both these two senators, Manchin from West Virginia, and I forget the name of the lady from Arizona. Her name starts with an S. But these two senators are blocking passage not only of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, but other important legislation in Washington, D.C. In Oakland, there's going to be a candlelight service at Preservation Park right near the Civic Center, and there's going to be a candlelight rally here at 6 p.m. at the state capitol in Sacramento, and there's going to be other candlelight ceremonies around the country, which again will be happening right around sunset, 6 or 7 o'clock. So do a internet check for John Lewis Candlelight Visual wherever you're at, and you'll be able to find out where it's happening. And they're doing these services from Anchorage, Alaska to Miami, Florida, so it's across the country.
So, do you see what I was expressing? Do you understand what I was expressing earlier? Now, you're telling me about these candlelight vigils, which I suppose are very peaceful gatherings that are going to happen around the country on behalf of John Lewis to commemorate this peaceful man, yet and still we're naming equipment that's part and parcel to going to war. Basically, I mean, they talk about defending or whatever. Who are we defending ourselves against? I don't know. But it seems like we're always invading and attacking somebody around the world. But do you understand the interesting dichotomy here, Harrison? I mean, I'm just trying to draw some parallelism here. Like, it just seems to me that, this little boat that's really basically an oil, just a gas station, a floating gas station, to go out and support the heavy hitters out there and to bring back I mean, come on, Harrison, I'll let you have it. I've said enough.
Well,
you have the floor.
it's ironic what the Navy has been doing as of late in doing these christenings and naming. A couple of years ago, they christened a ship here in San Francisco, the USS Tulsa, and some people were scratching their heads. Why is the USS Tulsa being christened in San Francisco? San Francisco doesn't have a shipyard, and San Francisco doesn't have any ties to Tulsa. But it turns out that this was the second USS Tulsa, and the first USS Tulsa, I believe, was built at the San Francisco shipyard, and that was one reason why it was christened here. And Mayor Breed spoke, but also the mayor of Tulsa, who was harshly criticized for his association with Trump and the whole fiasco about the honoring of Juneteenth and the whole background of what happened in Tulsa 100 years ago. And so he was talking about that horrible situation and how naming this boat would, to a certain degree, help remedy that awful situation and honor the people who were killed in Tulsa. So it's just ironic that he was making that speech, and a couple of years later, he's dealing with this big controversy about what happened 100 years ago in Tulsa. And the Navy has been getting a lot of heat for just overall racism in the military. And past ships, there's an aircraft carrier, the John Stennis, which is named after a Mississippi senator who, as they say, didn't have the best record as far as civil rights was concerned. So a lot of people say, why are you naming the aircraft carriers after racists? And the Navy needs to do something to try to remedy their racist and homophobic past. And as you mentioned, one of the ships is named after Harvey Milk, who served in the military and was assassinated here in San Francisco when he was supervisor. So this is the Navy's logic and perspective. But, I understand exactly what you were talking about in that why are they naming these ships after people who were not only advocates for peace, but after they served in the military, like Harvey Milk and others, were harsh critics of the military. Robert Kennedy, when he was running for president, he embraced Eisenhower's corporate military-industrial concept of what the military was all about, and he was talking about the military needs to change, and the United States needs to shift the priority of military spending. Like we have the big controversy now about spending with police. Back in the day, Robert F. Kennedy, when he was running, he was seriously talking about making a serious shift in military priorities and spending. Some people say maybe that's why he was killed. But I get exactly what you're talking about, and like I said, these people were not big fans of the military. Sojourner Truth, I'm sure she wouldn't have had too much to say about the military, particularly around the time when she was living, Civil War time, 150 years ago, military, and I get sometimes people call me up and criticize the Buffalo Soldiers, in that the Buffalo Soldiers, they were stationed at the Presidio. They were the first national park rangers, and they, as soon as Roosevelt created Yosemite, they were the first people to work as National Park Service employees. But people will say the Buffalo Soldiers, they got their names because they were working to annihilate Native Americans. So you have that dichotomy where some of the Native Americans praise the Buffalo Soldiers, but others said, hey, you're killing us. Why should we honor, Native American, Buffalo Soldiers when they were part of the U.S. military machine to eradicate Native Americans? So I understand exactly what you're talking about with that dichotomy and naming ships after people who not only were people peace, but in many situations criticized the military.
Well, thank you for that that analysis. that was important. Because at some point it seems like they're trying to get to the point where they're going to call one of these new ships coming out the Martin Luther King Destroyer. I mean, it's coming. You see, and I can see some of these so-called people who want to be liberal and want to be all this other. Want to propose a ship being named after Martin Luther King when he's against war. And just like you said about Robert Kennedy, some people feel that maybe King was assassinated as well because of his stance against the war, as well as his stance when he went to Memphis back in the day.
Exactly, and I wouldn't be surprised if you do see somebody making a proposal for Martin Luther King. I don't think it'd be a destroyer. I think it'd be an aircraft carrier because the Navy has about 4 or 5 aircraft carriers on contract, and they haven't named these carriers. I think the latest one that's coming out is I think it's the Gerald Ford. No, either Gerald. I think it's George Bush. The George Bush, and so a lot of people in South Florida said that test that they were doing with this ship may have been a factor of the condo coming back down because they did a stress test where they set off explosives off the Florida coast somewhere near Orlando that was so strong that registered as a 2.5, 3.0 earthquake. And buildings in Florida are not designed to withstand really any type of earthquake. So you have a lot of scientists who are theorizing that some of the shock waves from this stress test of this explosive next to this new aircraft carrier may have been a factor in that condo coming down. That's just a theory that a lot of scientists are putting out there. But like I say, after this ship comes online, there's like 4 or 5 others that's in the pipeline. So they just might try to name a carrier after Martin Luther King. I wouldn't be surprised. But if they read some of Dr. King's speeches in 1967 and 1968, they might have a second thought because Dr. King was a very, very harsh critic of the military-industrial complex in this country.
What they'll do is they'll just keep running this, just the one little phrase, I have a dream. That's all they'll do. I have a dream. I have a dream. That's all they'll put. I have a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have those ships, and they'll make you think that your dreams all dependent upon having these nuclear carriers floating around the water out there, keeping you safe. That's what they want. And they'll try to convince you of that. I'm just waiting for it, and I won't be surprised when it happens there.
And I'm here in Sacramento, and it's been about 20 years since I've been to Sacramento. Sacramento has changed a lot, and I was very, very surprised on just all the things that's happening down in Sacramento. Also surprised at so many African Americans I've seen walking around downtown Sacramento. And Sacramento's a hit place. I'll definitely come back.
Well, I think, and I've said this before to people, if you want to get an idea of where black folks are migrating, go on Google or whatever and try to pull up the number of black-owned restaurants in Oakland, for example, and then do the same thing with respect to Sacramento. And what I find is that Sacramento has equally or more African American owned restaurants. That I'm talking about our traditional black community. I find a lot of ownership, more ownership there than I do in Oakland. So I don't know if you found the same thing, Harris. You say you see more black folks walking around. It's becoming less and less of that little hick farm town that nobody wants to go hang out in. Now it seems like a lot of people from the Bay Area, in fact, are selling their places in the Bay Area. And I know I got a friend that just sold a place in Richmond and bought a townhouse in Sacramento as well. So a lot of people are considering it right now. The property values are surely going up there.
And as soon as I finished the news, I jumped on Bart down to Amtrak and jumped on the train, and it was a quick 2-hour ride, and I was here by 9 o'clock. So I understand there's about 8 or 10 trains a day from the Bay Area, from San Jose, which goes through Oakland and Richmond and Berkeley to Sacramento. So I'm assuming a lot of people are making that daily commute. It's like you said, Sacramento used to be the cow town, used to take forever to get there, but now, as someone would say, it's easy peasy.
Well, if you only have to work, let's say in the Bay Area, immediate Bay Area, when I say that, at least I'm saying maybe San Francisco itself or Oakland, at least. If you have to work in those areas per se, and you only have to come to work maybe 1 or 2 days out of a week, well, you could live in Sacramento easy. I mean, I think it would be an easy task if you had to come to the city once or maybe even twice a week. You don't have to come 5 days a week, and that's different. That's a big difference. So it makes it more available, I think, to people to want to live there who are working here in San Francisco, working here in the East Bay, or whatever the case might be. They're willing to take that jaunt to Sacramento because they only have to do it maybe once or twice a week. So it's not a lot of wear and tear on them to do that. So I think people are making different choices now that they didn't think about making before. People are considering Sacramento now, and they never considered Sacramento before, Harris.
Really? And you were playing some clips of Terry Collins, and he was talking about what was going on in Cuba with the medical students, and it's just ironic right now that the primary hotspots in the world right now are countries that are very important to black people: Cuba, Haiti, and South Africa. And with the situation with Cuba right now, Haiti, President Biden says that, well, we're not going to intervene yet. And that last word, yet, is critical because as Terry would say on his program, and I think maybe you might have a clip with somebody from Haiti, he was constantly doing interviews with people from Haiti or had connections with Haiti, and Terry was a internationalist in that regards, because I've gotten calls on my program because I used to come on either right before or right after Terry, and right after Terry's program I would get calls from people who were upset. They were upset at Terry. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that guy? Is he a Marxist? Is he a revolutionary? Does he not love the United States? I have to tell these people, Terry called him as he saw him, and he needed to criticize somebody. Hey, because we got this ceremony that we do every year, the Coon of the Year, and Terry wouldn't necessarily use that term, but he would make it clear that these people are fools, Uncle Toms, and he would use all kind of other adjectives to describe, as he called it, the craziness in the world. And he said the United States didn't have too much time left because people were just going crazy. And he criticized various mayors. We used to broadcast the Board of Supervisors. He would come on and criticize certain members of the Board of Supervisors. If someone needed to be called out, Terry would call them out, and he would not bite his tongue talking about these fools. And one thing about Terry in his position, as chair of the board at KPOO, many stations, particularly commercial stations, but increasingly a lot of non-commercial stations do have a code of what you can say and what you can play on the air. And if you violate those rules, and grant you're not in violation of any FCC rules, because we can't do that here at KPO because we want to keep our license. But outside of FCC rules and regulations and copyright rules, we are able to say what we want and play what we want. And Terry might disagree 100% with some of the programming on KPO. He called it fluff and other adjectives, but he let people do their show because that is the concept of KPOO. And Terry was respectful to a fault about letting other people on the station express their views and play the music that they want to play. I remember back in the day when Joe Rudolph was still around. We had Too Short come by, and he had his mixed tapes. And if we played, if Too Short walked in right now and gave you the tape, and you played it on the air, we would lose our license. But the rule says after midnight we could play it, and we played it, and we got NWA's release after Police, and like that we also played it after midnight when we could. And we got a letter from, I believe, the FBI, quote, urging us not to play after Police, in respect to, quote, law enforcement. But after we got that letter at 12:01, what did we play? After Police. And that was the respect that Terry had for all of us at KPO as far as being communicators, telling people what needed to be said, playing music that was cutting edge that a lot of stations might not play.
Terry, and he was basically ageless in a matter of speaking, because he got along with so many different generations. I mean, he wasn't stuck in one area, one arena. So he got along with so many different people. So that was good. Just love helping young people. He did. So, and I just remember so many great discussions that we've had around here over the years. we can reminisce all day about and tell a whole bunch of different stories and tales and things about scenarios with us, just being around the station. It's always something, like I always tell people, probably the best thing to do if you can ever come around KPO when you have certain people here, if you can just come in and just get a seat, top a seat in the corner somewhere, and don't say anything, just sit back and let the programmers talk. It's an entire show sometimes, right? And so some of the discussions that we would have, the politics that we would have before we go on the air, coming off the air, and so forth. I think a lot of that I'm going to miss from Terry, because he brought a lot of that, right? We're debating something before we go on, and we're debating it when we're coming off.
And one thing,
a certain way about a certain issue, so it was just really interesting all the time. It was hot all the time. Yeah.
And one thing about Terry, you and I are big sports fans, and other folks at KPO are deep into sports as well. And every so often, we'll go on air and talk about various aspects of what's going on in sports. But Terry, he could not stand sports. I think he said, along with religion, sports was the opiate of the people, and that folks were just wasting their time and money engaging in what he called the mindless activities of pro and college sports. But again, sports wasn't his thing, but we could go on and talk about whatever we wanted as far as sports. And if you wanted to talk to Terry about sports, he would give you an earful about just how corrupt and ruthless these entities in sports have been. And to a degree, he was right with this whole NCAA scenario. And he would talk about them like a dog. And the Supreme Court, the conservative Supreme Court, ruled that athletes can profit from what they're doing on the field. They can't get paid per se, but as far as getting money for anything else off the field, they can do that. And I just saw an interview with this younger brother, who just got named athletic director at UCLA. And he was saying that one of the things you're supposed to learn in college is how to manage whatever career that you're going into. And he's saying that what UCLA is going to do, he said UCLA has a great school of business and management. So when recruits come in, the first thing they're going to do is to get the football and basketball and other scholarship athletes into a management class to learn about the basics of sports business. So if they want to jump in, create a website, create a brand, they can do that. Or they just need to get the basis on how to choose an agent, how to deal with contracts, how to deal with the pro aspects, and how to do things like interviews and press conferences. We need to teach them to do that. We couldn't do that before the Supreme Court ruling came down. And Terry was, constantly criticizing these college entities for ripping off these young athletes, and in many cases, kicking them out when they were no longer viable for the university sports program. So all of that has changed, and Terry was in the forefront of leading the criticism of the corrupt NCAA.
So, Harrison, just recapping again, next Saturday, what to expect next Saturday?
What we're doing right now, and what we're going to do, I'm sure you're going to be reminiscing during your program, maybe playing some clips or whatever. But when we come on at noon, we're going to continue that conversation. We're going to invite people as they come into the memorial service to come to our position. We'll have the microphones there, and people will be free to come by and talk about Terry Collins' life and times. So if you come by and you step by the microphone, got to remember we got to deal with FCC rules and regulations, so no X-rated conversations. But outside of that, the microphone will be there, and you'll be able to talk about what you remember of Terry Collins.
Sounds good, Harrison. Sounds good. Anything you want to say before we get up out of here and let you get back to having a great time up there in Sacramento?
I think that's it.
All right. We'll get with you next Saturday, right? And we'll see you, I guess you'll be on Sunday night at 7 to 10 p.m. Right?
That's right.
All right. Thank you so much. And we'll tweak this a little bit. I think we got to work on it just a tad bit, but I think we're coming in where I think people can hear us, and I'm sure people are going to let me know when I get off the air. So
okay.
We'll talk. All right.
All right. Thank you, Larry.
All right. That's Harrison Chastain. We're just trying to get program. We really appreciate you. Kind of going through a test there, but we're talking news and politics today. APL San Francisco.